Dreamcatchers, I'm your host, V. Helena, and welcome to another day in the Writer's Haven. I'm excited about today's episode because I love to talk about the business of writing. And today's show is part one of a two-part series with my colleague and friend, author and publicist, Cherrie Woods. Today we're going to talk about Cherrie's book, Where Do I Start?, which is a book that provides insights on how to promote self-published work. In part two of this series, we're going to dig deeper into the PR world of literature and filmmaking. So, let's get started. Welcome to the show, Ms. Cherrie.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
It's so good to have you here. And this book, I mean, there's such a wealth of knowledge in it, and I definitely wanted to bring it to our dream catchers so that they can understand from a PR perspective how to promote their books and just the whole business of marketing their books. So let's just dive right in. Why do you think this book is important? Why did you think it was important to write?
Well, I was in the unique position of being asked to write this book several times. I started to do workshops for self-published authors because I got asked to do them, because I was in a writing organization, and once everyone found out that I did PR for a living, you know, I would get these lineups after the meetings saying, can you tell us about what a publisher should do here, and ask this question. You know, there were just numerous questions. And finally, someone on the board said, well, Cherrie, why don't you just do a workshop for everyone? So I put together a workshop, and then there were more questions. And then people were like, well, where's the book? So.
And the board of?
The board of the Black Writers Guild of Maryland.
Okay,
yeah.
And they're headquartered in Baltimore?
They're headquartered in Baltimore, but we certainly, they certainly have members from all over the DMV.
And why is it important to become a member of that organization?
Oh, wow, now you're into a question. You know, a lot of, particularly when you're self-published, you're usually doing things on your own. So a traditionally published author, once you finish that manuscript, you hand it, you get a publisher, they kind of take care of everything. When you're a self-published author, you are everything. So you need guidance if you don't have that expertise. And so when you're in a writers organization, you're going to learn from the seminars and from other writers. Sometimes there are mistakes, there are successes. So that's kind of your publishing company.
Okay. So how did you delve into this whole world of PR and becoming a publicist?
Sorry.
Cherrie is sick. Everybody, just don't mind her.
Okay.
Don't mind her.
So I've been in the PR field for about 16 years, so it's not new to me. I worked primarily in arts and culture and in government, so I've been doing public relations. So publicity is just sort of that smaller part of the PR world, and so I've specialized a little more in that area for authors.
Okay, and how does that translate? What exactly do you do?
Okay, because that's the magic question. So publicity really is, I connect authors to the public at large and also to media outlets. I would say those are the two connectors. But in that connection, there's so much that's involved. So whether it's writing a press release and pitching an angle, something to do with your book that makes it interesting enough for an outlet to want to have you on air or on a radio interview or even online media. And also, how do we connect to your general public? So maybe I'm getting you a book signing, or a reading opportunity could be from a church to a bookstore to a library to a museum. How are we getting your book out to the public? That's kind of the overall. And then, of course, as you, particularly when you work with self-published authors, there's that phase of you may not quite be ready for me to pitch you to that media outlet or get you a book signing because maybe your book cover isn't quite as professional as it needs to be. Maybe your back cover, the headshot, isn't of the best quality. Maybe the synopsis of your book on the back cover isn't written as well as it could be. So that's where the extra work comes in working with self-published authors.
Okay. Now I'm glad that you brought that up, because some of those things are things that ordinarily an agent would work with an author to make sure that those, I's are dotted, T's are crossed. So tell me, how is that part of what a publicist does?
Hey, well, again, because just to explain, so an author, you've written your book, you have a manuscript, and if you want to go the traditionally published route, then you're going to find an agent, and those are getting harder and harder to find. But when you find that agent, you're actually not supposed to be paying them up front. They get a percentage of your advance once they find you a publisher. So that agent's primary job is to get you published. So yes, they would work on, your bio synopsis, make sure your book's properly edited, and it's in their best interest, of course, to get you that publisher, because that's how they get paid. Mm-hmm. So, but again, if you're not going that route, you're basically on your own. How do you know as a self-published author that your bio or synopsis is correct or in the right format or is industry standard? How do you know what resolution your headshot should be? How do you know what the typical length for a novel or a nonfiction book is? You don't. And so a quality publisher or publicist who knows his or her stuff, they can advise you on that. So they're taking some of the work of an agent and in terms of being your publicist, because you are self-published.
Okay, now I remember you had also mentioned yet a third category of between the contemporary publishing and the self-published author, and there was a third one that you mentioned.
Okay, I'm trying
in our conversation yesterday. I can't remember.
I guess the other thing, I know that we talked a lot about book covers, things like that. I'm trying to think of the third.
Okay,
it'll come.
We'll get back to it.
Yes,
we'll get back to it. Okay, so you're basically saying that there are distinctions between what an agent does and what a publicist does. If you're signed with a major publishing company, there are things that are very, very specific to the role of an agent.
Yes.
And in that case, the publicist more so speaks as the voice of their client, or?
Well, when an agent decides to take on your book project, and then they're pitching to the publisher specifically, once a publisher says, okay, we want that book, in a way they're purchasing that book, and your agent gets their percentage, then that publishing house is, they have their own publicists, they have their editors, they have their marketing people. So you're fine, you're covered once you get picked up by a publisher. Mm-hmm. So that's what's so great about the traditional publishing route. But again, as a self-published author, my manuscript is done. What now? I don't know how to publish. I don't know any professional editors. I'm not a graphic designer, so how do I design my book? I'm not sure what the format is to write a proper bio synopsis. Mm-hmm. Could also be, I'd like to get my book reviewed. I don't know how to do that. Those are all things the publishing house will do for you. Between the agent and the publishing house, they kind of cover all your needs.
Okay.
So again, on the outside of that world, you're covering all your needs.
So I think I remember what the third category, or maybe it's another part of self-publishing versus the third category, is those self-published authors who go with the digital.
The ebook.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they sign with a publishing house, so to speak, who provides the same type of support that a major publishing house would, with some limitation.
Right. Exactly.
And I think the limitation is primarily with marketing, probably.
Right.
And that's where the publicist would come
fills in that blank. Yes.
Okay.
And so you have online publishing companies. There's several, and they're called typically vanity presses. I'm not quite sure where the term came from, but they do some of the things that a publishing house would do. So they probably have in-house graphic designers and editors, except of course it's all online. You're doing everything digitally. Now they do have marketing and PR services, but from what I've heard reported from most authors, they're not that good.
Yeah.
They're usually not satisfied with that. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times,
like they're not booking you on, some big book tour They're not getting into contact with Barnes & Noble to get your book signing set up.
Exactly.
So they're really not offering any marketing. It's really on the author to do that.
In the online world, they get you on the Barnes & Noble website, you know, the digital website.
Maybe
they'll get you on Amazon as well. But anything in real time, no, they're typically not offering those services.
Okay. And so whether it's a self-published author who's doing everything themselves, or a self-published author who is going with an online press, a publicist is a good person to have.
We are. And even sometimes authors that are published by a traditional publishing house, unless they're a big name, sometimes they still want the services of a publicist to help them push their books as well, because even if you have a big publishing house, excuse me, even if you're with a big publishing house, if you're not one of the big name authors, the marketing budget that you would have may be non-existent or really small. So you might still want to do some of your own work on the side. And so I've helped authors who are published by a traditional publisher, give them some insight and some direction, and then maybe they can push the publicists that they're working with their publishing house to, you know, get things done a little faster.
Okay. Great. All right, so of the 10 points in your book, where do I
10
start?
Questions. Yes.
Which point would you think is the most important for a self-published author?
You know, I start out at the beginning of the book and I ask that question, why did you write your book? And oftentimes, authors forget that. And I think when you're able to answer that question to yourself, really, at the beginning, why I'm writing that book, it really kind of defines the progression of how your book goes in terms of the public side. Because research has been done and they found there's 3 reasons authors typically write books. Well, 4 reasons, sorry. They just can't find a publisher. That's, you know, straight up. They've tried and can't get a publisher.
So that's why they write the book?
Well, not write the book, why they self-publish the book.
Why they self-publish
Excuse me. So they choose to self-publish a book because they cannot find a traditional publisher. Some people just say, you know what, I just have something to say. I just want to say it and I want to write a book. Or they want it as a source of income.
That's probably number 1.
Right, and then, actually, no, we'll talk about that. And the 4th is, you know, I've been doing something for 10 years. So maybe you've been making films for 10 years, and you want to really establish your brand in a serious way, and so you write a book, and so it just takes your brand to a whole other level, because now people have something physical printed about you, so that helps kind of make your brand even stronger. Now, ironically, I think the problems arise. A lot of people just want to write a book. I have no expectations of this book. I'm just writing this book. And if nobody buys it, I'm good. And then they self-publish a book, and your friends and your family and your cousins and your coworkers all buy the book. And suddenly you think, oh,
you're on this high.
I'm on this high. This book could be a bestseller.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to take this book to another level. That's where some of the challenges come in, because the book you wrote, just because I have something to say and it doesn't matter if it sells, is not necessarily the same book that you should look at as a source of income. Because once your book becomes a source of income, it's a business. And businesses require, you know, certain attributes and certain level of professionalism and certain packaging, and maybe then people want to know, okay, this book is great, but who else thinks so? And so there's your review process, or who are you to say that you're so good at this? So that's building your platform and showing people your credibility. So that's where oftentimes I meet an author who's like, well, I wrote this book and 300 people bought it, and I just think I'm going to be a bestseller. And who are the 300 people? The people in your network will support you. But now you want a mass audience. We've got to tighten things up.
And that's where Publicist comes in.
Yes, that's where good publicist comes in.
Now, you talked about this just a second ago. Question 4 talks about, I think, building the author's platform.
Right.
Explain what that is and why
So
it's
platform.
important.
So when we think of what a platform is, it's kind of like your base. So, you know, the subway platform, the platform for a statue, that's the base. So that's what you're doing. You're establishing a base for yourself as an author. So it's not just, hi, I'm Cherrie Woods and I wrote this book. It's, hi, I'm Cherrie Woods. I have 16 years experience in public relations. I've worked in arts and culture. I've worked with 25 authors in various genres. And I have a Facebook following of 400, Twitter feed that has about 500 followers. So this is saying to your public, maybe even a potential publisher in the future, that Cherrie Woods comes with something, not just the desire to be an author, but she also has somewhat of a following. She has experience. This is not someone that's starting from scratch. That's how you build your platform.
Okay, and why is that important? Is it important because you're looking to potentially attract publishers that can take you to another level?
Yeah, attract publishers, attract buyers. People want to know that when you write a book, you know, once the little high is over, why am I buying her book? What does she know? What makes her different from anyone else? What's her credibility? And it helps you to stand out from the many other authors that are self-publishing. And you do want to stand out because it's getting, you know, it's a crowded arena right now.
Yeah, which genre would you say is at the highest level now of readership?
Fiction, they say fiction and children's books.
Children's books?
Yes.
Okay, so I thought that the young adult genre was also one that was really, really
It is growing, but on the self-published side.
On the self-published
Yeah, on the self-published side, fiction and children's books do the best.
Okay.
Yeah, young adult in the published world is definitely growing.
Okay. So, you know, our viewership is primarily made up of authors and filmmakers.
Right.
And so you talked a bit about what a publicist can do in supporting authors. But I also know that publicists, correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Also, I mean, basically anything that you want to publicize and get media attention, you pick up the phone and you call a publicist to do that. What are some of the other areas of entertainment that you've worked on or with?
Well, with arts and culture, so I've definitely been very involved with visual arts. I've also worked with nonprofits, and so their public relations strategies for the nonprofits I work with was putting on a fashion show fundraiser. So we would get celebrity models and things like that, but that was their method of raising funds and also their method of promoting their organizations. So I'd say visual arts. I've done theater, so visual arts, theater, fashion a little bit, and then of course just nonprofit companies, museums, and in museums, excuse me. So in the museum world, we have exhibitions, but we also have theater, we have reader series, we have fashion, there's a little bit of everything. Sometimes it's, at one museum, we celebrated Rosa Parks' 89th birthday. So we had to do all the PR for that, and there were a lot of celebrities in-house, Angela Vance and Courtney Vance, Angela Bassett. We had to manage all the celebrities. I've worked with living legends from an exhibition called Freedom Sisters. We were working with Merle Evers Williams, with Sonia Sanchez, Dorothy Height.
Love Sonia Sanchez.
I mean, it was just, so there's a celebrity side also in the museum world. So I think I've promoted Bamboozled, Spike Lee's film, and we had him come in and do an on-stage interview with a popular film reviewer. So I've kind of gone the whole gamut in terms of working on the PR side.
And the reason why I ask you that is because I'm making the assumption, probably not, rightly so, that the work that you do with self-published authors and just authors in general is different from what you're doing in those other areas of entertainment.
I think the biggest difference to me, and I see sort of the overall public relations area, I see public relations, there's a science and a form to it, and then it's learning the field. So I've always been an avid reader, and I've self-published 2 books, but I didn't have a definite intention on becoming the PR guru for self-published authors. When the need arose, that just meant that I dug a little more, and I learned the publishing industry, and I learned, you know, the structures and the requirements for a proper bio and synopsis, and I knew about resolutions and quality photos from working at an art museum for so many years. So it's just a matter of drilling down. Just as if I wanted to be a publicist for movie cameras, I would learn all the intricacies of that product. So it could be product. In my case, it's people, and I'm providing that service. So publicity kind of runs the whole gamut. It's just a matter of what field you're in and what you're promoting.
Right, but it just seems that with the self-published authors, you're putting a lot more time and effort in not only grooming them to stand before any type of medium and discuss their book, but you're also helping them with branding.
Yes.
You're helping them. You mentioned book covers because it is important. It's amazing to me how some people don't really know or realize the importance of book covers and what attracts the eye before you even pick it up to see what the name of the book is.
Exactly.
So people in the industry know that a self-published author just starting out may not understand that paradigm. So I just wanted to make the distinction in that way.
Yes, there are definite differences. I guess it's like any independent, as a friend of mine said, when he read my book, he goes, really, this kind of can apply to any independent artist, whether they're music, film, books, because a lot of the questions that I'm answering can apply across the board. So if it's a performing artist, then it's his album cover or the CD cover. You know, if it's a film, then maybe it's that promo piece that you're using, the music score you select. So it's, again, getting to know the industry, getting to know the genre of film or the genre of books or genre of music, and then understanding what works and which public you're trying to attract, and then executing it. Okay.
So you talked a bit about marketing. I think being the thrust of what a PR machine does. Now, with self-published authors, I would assume, probably wrongly so, I would assume that marketing them would be a bit of a challenge, especially because they're just starting out. They may not even have a clue in terms of branding what it is that they want, the image that they want to portray. So how does that work?
I guess I do things so much by rote now. Well, I think it starts with that whole, again, what I call your PR toolkit. So it's your headshot, your book cover, your bio, and your synopsis. I call that the PR toolkit. And so once we get that right, because the book cover drives a lot of the marketing pieces. So once we finalize that book cover.
What about before? So the book is finished. And as it's being engineered and put together and all of that, shouldn't there be some things that the author is doing or that you're helping the author?
I encourage my authors to do research. So if you're writing a psychological thriller, I want you to do research. And there's lots of research out there. Who reads psychological thrillers? So you're identifying who your target readership is. Because oftentimes authors go, well, I want everybody to read it. But you don't have the money or the energy on your own to market to everyone. So you start with your target market. Who reads psychological thrillers? More males, maybe 28 to 54.
There's research
so that's
on that.
Right. So exactly. So that's your target market. So where do males go? I mean, where are guys going to buy these books? Is it bookstores? Are they in the library? Are they buying more e-books? All that research is available. That will drive kind of where you put your energy into doing your marketing. And then can you go out and look at other psychological thrillers like the Stephen Kings, and I'm not a big psychological thriller reader, but Stephen King, but I said Stephen King has a distinct brand, you know?
Yeah.
When it's Stephen King's book, there's Stephen King's name. It's usually in a specific font. It's usually large, usually at the top of the cover. And there's an image that's scary, that's kind of predictable, and we know it's Stephen King. So what do you want your brand to be? One, you're not a known author, so make sure your name is visible. That's really, really important.
On the cover?
Yes, I see a lot of covers where the author's name is tiny, but you're trying to grow a brand around your name. And then if we choose that font, use that font in every book cover, even if they're different. And then what's happening with psychological thrillers? What are the mainstream thrillers use? What's the images? Is it one image? Is it several images? Follow the trend, and I always say imitate, don't duplicate. But there is a trend that the publishing world uses, and they have researchers. We don't. So again, imitate, don't duplicate. If it's for romances, if it's all Fabio-looking men on the cover, find a male model that's sexy and put him on the cover of your romance. Follow the industry trend, because again, they know what's right. They know what's selling, and you know, you don't have to reinvent that wheel.
Right. So authors usually come to you at what point? Because it sounds like a lot of what you're saying is something that they should be doing before they write.
Yes.
Some of it is after they've written, maybe they need to do a mad dash and do this. Or,
right.
You know, as they're involved in their book cover image, that they keep these things in mind. So it's at different points.
Right.
What's the best point for them to?
I would say, you know, you're writing a book. You're good. You're clear on it. When your manuscript, when you've done your editing, when your manuscript is written, you found an editor, and you get the time frame for how long that editing will take place. Once the editor kind of reviews it, I would say a good 3 months before your book comes out, you can start really developing your cover. 3 to 6 months, because your cover can be out before your book's ready.
No, but I'm saying, when should they be calling you?
Oh, wow. In the ideal world, once their manuscript is done, before they get to anything else.
Yeah.
But I would say typically I'm seeing most authors about 2-3 years after their first book has been out.
And then what happens in that case? They have to go back and redo their cover?
Yeah, so I call myself the rehab. The rehabber, because we're doing over covers. I just did a photo shoot with a client, rewriting bios and synopses. But here's the plus about self-publishing in that area, is that can be done in a short period of time. Whereas with a publishing company, if you got millions of books out, that's not going to happen. They're not going to recall. So you have to wait a little longer. So
and hopefully they've done the work.
Exactly.
At that level, so you wouldn't.
So and after 2 years, even in the traditionally published world, you might be looking at changing your cover anyway in terms of a redo. So it's not the end of the world, you know what I mean? But if you've had a really bad product out for 2-3 years, it's a little bit more of a challenge. Yeah. So.
Okay, well, thank you so much for, we didn't get a chance to talk about everything I want to talk about in your book.
There's so much.
We'll cover it in part 2 of our series.
All right.
Dreamcatchers, tune in next week for part 2 of our continued discussion on the business of writing from a PR perspective with Cherrie Woods. See you next time, and until then, catch fire on purpose.
Green hat, red hat, oops. Red shirt, blue shirt, yellow shirt, oops. Yellow pants, red pants, green pants, oops.